Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. I hope that wherever you are, you're safe, you're well. Hopefully, you had a restful and peaceful weekend. In case you don't know who I am, I'm Tala Odeh. I head up capability development here at Cosmic Centaurs, and we're a leadership and organizational development firm based in the GCC. You're joining us for the seventh annual Cosmic Conference, which is a 3 week virtual conference taking place between the 25th of March and April 17th. Usually we hold this conference in October, but given what's happening around the region, we decided to bring this conversation forward, helping leaders navigate what is a uncertain context, to say the least, and what feels like a prolonged crisis. Our conference is titled Grounded and Limitless: Leading Organizations That Survive and Thrive. And we're really hoping to support leaders through all of our webinars, through all of our workshops. We want to help them both be grounded, so, stay rooted in their purpose and what keeps them going, but also do get the chance to think about what's possible, what they can build, what they can dream. So we've brought together some remarkable leaders in week one, and I'll have the team drop a link to those sessions so that you can catch up. We have experts, academics, practitioners, and they're all coming together to try and make sense of what's happening and what is required of leaders. Week one was all about how do we survive periods of uncertainty. This is the official kickoff of week two, adapt. How do we evolve in response to change? If you have done everything that you needed to do in order to keep your organization going, then how do we, make sense and really adapt to what's happening around us? We have 6 webinars and 2 workshops this week. And next week is called Thrive. It's week 3, and it's about turning the lessons from crisis into a competitive advantage. So Marilyn is our guest today. Hi, Marilyn. Thanks for joining us. We are going to ask for you to participate in this session. It is called a manager mailbag. And the idea is that we collected responses from managers from all across the region to see what questions they have about leading through uncertainty. So you're welcome to drop your questions in the chat. And we do have one ask. If you do find value in this session, or if you have tuned into any other ones from the conference and you want to give back, please do take our survey. We're conducting primary research on leadership in the Arab world and how leaders are navigating uncertainty. Your contributions will help us publish a white paper, and the link to that is also in the chat. So with that, I'm going to bring us to today. Today we have Marilyn, our CEO and founder. I insisted on reading her bio, actually, because we have not yet flipped the mic on her for this conference. So I am going to take a minute to tell you a little bit about what makes her such a relevant and impactful person to be having this conversation with. Marilyn has actually spent 15 years working with C-suite from across both this region and also in Europe. She works around strategy, she's led transformation, she's built organizations. I always joke that her book is going to be titled The Architect Who Built Organizations, Not Buildings. And her background spans corporate leadership roles, including the Chief Marketing Officer of Amad, where we met, and CEO of Dubai Opera. Before that, she was in building and scaling digital ventures. And honestly, that's where I pinpoint her love for bringing people together and harnessing the power of collaboration. I know, Marilyn, that's where you grew in the ranks as a middle manager all the way up to being number 2. And I think that today's conversation is going to be one that you have so much value to add, because you know what it's like to have leading, you lead yourself and your work, but then also a team, and then a department, and then multiple departments, ultimately to the organization. And very interestingly, managing up. So be it the C-suite, managing up, being it as your position as an advisor to the board, or also even to helping leaders manage their stakeholders, their board, whoever they're working with. So I'm looking forward to today's discussion, and I'm really happy that we'll be tag teaming it together. I'm going to share a little bit more about why we felt it's so important to have this discussion. I work a lot with middle managers in our work, the rest of the team as well, and they are such a critical layer in the organization. You can think of them as what I like to call unsung heroes. They are so important, and oftentimes it's really sad to say that middle managers can be overlooked from a budget perspective, from a value perspective. And in moments like today's uncertainty, so much more of them is asked. Can you provide clarity when you don't have clarity? Can you drive performance and, try and keep things moving while everything around you is shifting in ways you couldn't predict? Can you support teams who are experiencing war and, anxieties and everything that's happening, while also helping drive purpose and engagement at work? Actually, middle managers account to around 70% of a team's engagement. And that's a huge load and a huge responsibility. And yet half of them say that they're not prepared to lead others. So it's tough, right? We're asking a lot of a group that in many cases hasn't been really enabled to succeed in the first place. And in the best of contexts, that's true. And now in today's, uncertainty, that's even amplified. So what have we done to try and really help middle managers today? We've been asking for the past few weeks to submit questions. What's keeping you up at night? What are you being asked that you don't have the answer to? What's making you and your leadership challenging today? And those are exactly the questions that we are going to answer. The session titled A Manager Mailbag, it's kind of like those radio shows where somebody writes in and we read the letters. And that's really how we're going to structure the discussion. We asked, and a lot of the questions that we received are something that we also see consistently in our day to day. So, do I give my team a bit of space right now, or do I help them focus on the work? Is now the time to empower my team, or should I actually take the reins and exercise more control? Do I focus on what's right in front of me, or do I try to look up and look around and think a bit further ahead? A lot of managers are asking to hold these at the same time, and actually, they are what we call tensions. We refer to them as leadership polarities. What are polarities? They are interdependent pairs. So it's a concept that was introduced by Barry Johnson. He's kind of the creator of polarity management. And really, what a polarity is two things that seem like they're in opposition. Both have value, both are necessary. It's not about doing either or, but rather about knowing when to do each. You can think of it like inhaling and exhaling. You would never do both at the same time. Both are absolutely required to live. And yet you need to know when to do each one. And they're not like problems, because it's not like, oh, do I focus on control or do I empower my team? Actually, you can't solve for them at once. You need to continuously manage these concepts. They will appear in your day to day. They appear at each level within your team, within the org. And it's a topic that we explored really deeply in our 2024 conference. It's also a core part of the middle manager training and development programs that we offer, because we know that what effective leaders really need, especially when they lead in the middle, is to build their range. Can you move between both sides of that polarity? Do you know when to lean into each one? Some examples of what that could sound like is, do you know when you need to work on the current tasks that you need to unlock today versus owning, or do you block your time to work on the future work that is going to help your company later? A little bit more simply, do you know when is the time to take action and move? Or do you actually need to be in more of a reflective state and pause and think about something? In uncertainty and moments like this, actually leadership is much harder, because you're not solving for that one thing. You're really trying to figure out how to navigate both sides of that polarity. And it's why our conference was called the Cosmic Dance. Do you know how to dance to either side? And that's really what we structured today's conversation around, the topic of leadership polarities. And we're going to explore 3 of them that came through very strongly in the questions. Myself and Marilyn will give you a little bit of context about the polarity, and then share the questions that leaders have asked us, and offer you different practical guidelines, tools, advice on how you can manage it. So if you are a middle manager and you're tuning in today, the session is for you. If you want to tag someone who you think might find value in it, please do join in. With that, Marilyn and I are going to dive into the conversation. I know you were coming in and out, Marilyn. You have some tech issues, but we're going to be all right. We're going to figure this out. Maybe we can kick us off with the first polarity at play: engagement and performance. I'll read the question, and then we can tell you a little bit about it. And maybe I'll ask Marilyn to give us a sense, because this is one of those polarities she's really good at dancing in between. The question we received is, Dear Cosmic Centers, I'm a mid-level manager in a corporate environment here in the UAE. The expectations of my leaders haven't changed, but my team is distracted and they're not as focused as before. And I'm stepping in and redoing the work just to meet the deadlines. Is there a way to keep performance on track while also supporting my team through what they're experiencing? We had couple of questions that were kind of around the topic. I'll let Marilyn, maybe if you want to read a few of them, or tell us a little bit about this polarity and how you see it at play.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is a polarity. By the way, before I start, Tala, if I have internet connection problems, please let me know. But hopefully I've switched Wi-Fi's enough times that we should be all right now. So I was going to say that on the topic of engagement and performance, this is a polarity that emerges, especially amongst middle managers, all the time. So this isn't a new problem. It's a problem we see because, we always say, like with polarities, we always have naturally a place where we sit. I might be someone who's more task-oriented, and therefore I'm much more comfortable pushing on performance, but not so great at engaging people. And I might be the opposite. I might be a leader that everybody loves and takes care of everyone and is present for them, but not really great at extracting performance and setting strong boundaries.
Mm.
And so we find this to be, a polarity that shows up for this group of people a lot and all the time. And of course, in times of crisis, this is heightened. All the things that we're kind of working but not perfect suddenly are multiplied. And the problem is that today, the reason why this question, came up multiple times in the submissions that we had, is that actually the risk of either is really high, right? So it might be that in good times, it's okay to kind of relax a little bit on the task side because we're doing okay. But today, only focus on well-being, well, you might, risk the business actually, because you need to deliver results, because the survival of our organizations is at risk today. Not to scare anyone, but that can be the risk. And on the other side, if you only push performance, considering everything that is on people's minds and everything they're going through, then you get burnout, you get mistakes, which you also can't afford. So it is always the case with polarities that you have to be able to hold both at the same time, meaning you have to be both really good at pushing for performance, but also focused on people engagement, well-being, and so on and so forth. So that's a little bit of like the definition of this. Now, going back to the specific question, like, what do I do? How do I do both of those things? And of course, you cannot do them today as you would have done them 6 months ago, because the context is different and you have to realize and name that. So if I were to, talk to this person and give them advice, I would start by saying, like, let's sit for a minute on the performance side, right? It's always good to see what you can do on each side. So on the performance side, I think we have to redefine what performance is right now, right? As in, we have to be okay with saying, where do we have to keep the standards really high? What are the things that we absolutely have to finish today? What are the things that we can deprioritize or at least lower the bar on? What is good enough on some of these things? So one is becoming extremely explicit about what does performance sound like, something that, for example, we did especially in the first few weeks, and we come back to it in weeks where we feel like those weeks are particularly hard, is we sat with our team and said, okay, forget business as usual and how we would have run things and how much pressure we would have normally put on you, because we do have really high standards here. What are the 2 things that you absolutely have to finish today? And if you're done with them and you don't feel like you can do more, you're fine. Like, move on, do something else. I think the other thing on the redoing piece, because that's also like, we talked about it with Sandra last week, like at the end, everything kind of falls on these people and they have to take care of their people, but also finish the work. And if you're a leader, it is on you. It is your accountability that the work is done. And so this particular question, says, I'm ending up having to redo a lot of things. And I want to go back and say that is a no-go, because you will break.
Yes.
So what you want to do on that end of the performance spectrum is that you want to recontract instead of redo. And what I mean by that is take a step back. Maybe the reason people aren't finishing things, and we see this all the time, is just a bad brief. Go back to the beginning of how you make this task the best quality it can have, which is re-clarify expectations, agree on the output in infinite details if you must, agree on what good looks like, and that way you minimize rework, which, by the way, you should have done in peacetime anyways, but now it becomes so much more important. Write your brief down, record it. People aren't focused as much as they used to be. They might miss details. Like, just try and clarify the process. And then to end it on the engagement side and on the people side, I think, one, you want to allow for variation. So we can't expect everybody to be at their best all day long, all the time. We can expect that Tala's going to be great today, Marilyn isn't, X is at, is having a good day, and Y is having a really anxious day. And so I think allowing for that to be voiced, for people to say, I am not great today. Can someone jump in and help? And I think that's the beauty of teams. I need to talk this out. I don't know how to recuperate my energy. I haven't slept all night. I think normalizing these conversations and then being able to be adaptable and adjustable accordingly really, really, really matters there. And of course, protecting your team where you can. There's a lot of stress, a lot of gossip, a lot of predictions. Maybe someone in another department got let go and now they can't think anymore because they're wondering whether their job is, at risk or not. And so this is really about protecting them from that noise, creating clarity where you can, and making sure that energy is discussable.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for those. I really resonate with a lot of what you said. And I think it's so true. Like we see it with our own team, we see it with the teams that we lead. There's nothing like going back to the absolute basics of the diligent project management to help drive that performance, to break the task down, to accept that not everything will be likely where it once was, but that you can rely on the systems that you have in place of the brief, of the check-ins, to help chunk out the work in such a way that feels like manageable and feels fair. Because actually we have a question here that says targets are still targets, and it's true, right? People can be disengaged given everything that's happening. And I want to talk and add a little bit to the engagement, because this question here says, dear Cosmic, I'm a senior manager at a professional services firm in Dubai. Honestly, the energy is low. People are disengaged, but targets are still targets. How can I push for results without pushing people over the edge? I think Marilyn talked a lot about the performance side. I want to offer just a lens onto this. People are disengaged. Of course, it is that type of a context where it's normal. And I feel really blessed and privileged to view work as a great outlet, a way to keep me distracted, a way to keep me busy, allow me to keep going forward. But it's really hard to show up to work in times like this. And what we can do is rely on those basics for engagement, right? What are those rituals? Checking in, calling people. Do you have a daily stand-up? One question that we like to offer as a reframe is, how are you today? Because day could day to be different, right? Like, how are you today? And if someone's like, like you said, Marilyn, I haven't slept or I'm not well, I think that's really important to kind of acknowledge and say that's tough, and then allow for people to jump in and say, does someone want to take this off his or her plate? Could you help with that? I also wonder, Marilyn, maybe you want to share, what are some of the other rituals that you see that are exceptionally effective in leading through uncertainty that can keep teams engaged? Like, I think leaders might feel like, oh, I need to delete all of the team times because it's not really the moment to have fun. But how can we reframe or rethink of some of those rituals that will keep people engaged? Because, right, we shouldn't be dropping them. So not sure if that's something you want to jump in and share more about.
Yeah, quite the opposite, in fact. Every piece of research we've done, we spoke about it with Connie last week as well, shows us that in times of uncertainty, Rida spoke to us about this as well, anything that creates a sense of control or predictability is really going to add a lot of value for people. Yeah. In fact, when the world is uncertain, knowing that we are going to meet every day at 9 a.m., that we are once a week, we have a new, actually, we've introduced a new ritual now, which is Zainab asks us, a Cosmic Conversations question every Friday, which we hadn't been doing in like this time.
A while.
Anything that creates that kind of predictability, certainty, human connection really matters. And, I would say you want to have rituals that provide clarity. So it's like clarity on tasks, clarity on, okay, what's going on in the company? This group of people got fired. What do we know about that? Even when you don't have answers, you want to make sure that you show up with clarity. We had the session with Claire last week about leadership comms in times of uncertainty. It really matters that you show up and that you have clear messages, even when you don't have the answers. Jumping on what we said before, moments to check in. So just as you said, like, how are you? How's the energy today? Who needs help? Who needs, us to jump in, whether it's a collective energy check-in or whether it's a one-on-one, texting someone, be like, I noticed you weren't yourself today. How can I help? Definitely staying on top of work. So our stand-ups, our retrospectives, like whatever helps us to keep things moving. And then connection.
Yeah,
we survive these moments through our community. We survive them through our togetherness. And I think, again, you can variate between kind of moments where people can vent, but also trying to bring positivity back. So, for example, on the first day when this started, we did, we were welcoming our team back post Eid, I think. So not the first day, but just after Eid. And we asked that each team member say something they love or admire about the person next to them on the screen. And that's not fake positivity. That I think that's like the balance there. We're not trying to be like, oh, what are, like, we're not trying to pretend or deny that this is a hard time. We're just trying to reconnect to our true purpose, our true values, our true connection, our true humanity, and something that we can genuinely feel positive about that day. So on the contrary, the more you close and shrink, the less your team will feel safe. The more you expand and are present in the right ways and maintain the rhythm of daily life, the more you are supporting them in getting through this period.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And thank you for also referencing what Claire said. That session was so insightful. And I think she touched on something, and you alluded to it. I want to bring it up, is to say that middle managers, like we care a lot about our teams. We do also care a lot about managing up. We'll get to that in a minute. One thing we forget to do is kind of look around us and maybe see the other managers that are leading teams or departments that are our peers. And we did get a question about that. Like, how can I help my peers in this moment? I have a pretty good grasp on managing my team. And it reads, keeping everyone calm and focused is something I'm good at, but my peers are not doing as great. Fellow managers. Sometimes their energy can seep into my team. And they ask, what do I do? And I want to thank whoever submitted this question, because I actually think it's so true. Like, when we do a lot of our training for middle managers, we say it's on you as a layer in the organization to hold each other accountable for continuing these learnings. But beyond the learnings of the workshop, it's that you should check in with your fellow managers in the organization. Maybe something they're doing you can apply to your team. Maybe something you can offer like as insight to them. Maybe they need to feel held. A lot of times middle managers tend to feel, like I said, if not overlooked, like undervalued. And what we can do as peers is help each other. I know that it's something that not everybody maybe necessarily remembers, but to answer this question, how can I help them? I think just like you said, Marilyn, it's just ask, take a walk, be like, how are you doing? How's your team? And share those experiences with each other. We do a lot of work with leadership teams. And while maybe these managers aren't necessarily on a team together, you have a similar role and you can resonate with each other. You can find common ground. You can just have that chat where you don't feel like you need to show up as the leader, because you're not leading them, but rather as their equal and as somebody who's equally trying to help make work a place that you can come to and create value right now when everything else around us feels hazy and uncertain.
Yeah.
So
look, I'll add to that. We're talking about polarities, which was our 2024 conference, but our 2025 conference was systems thinking.
Yep.
And I want to say that as a middle manager, obviously you have one of the hardest positions in the system, which is you have to take care of yourself, your boss, your team, and your peers. And I agree with you. You're not going to do their job. You're not their manager. There's a limit to your responsibility, but at the same time, you're not completely a victim of this. You don't have to be a victim of this. And I think to your point, Tala, like whether it's a conversation with them or whether it's a root cause analysis for yourself, right? Like what is it that is causing this leader and their team to have shortcomings? Is it that they don't know how to do what they're being asked to do? Can I help them with that? So is it a capability problem? Is it a capacity problem? Are they overwhelmed? Is it, can I help them restructure? Like if you've done a great job of removing the unessential tasks and, trying to declutter your project plans, can I help them to do the same thing? So can I help them fix their capacity problem? Is it that I haven't been explicit about my expectations? So is it a clarity problem? Like, should I go back and say, actually, there's a bit of a disconnect between what I expect you and your team to deliver and what you are delivering. I want to help to unpack why. Is it something on my team? Is it something on yours? Is it the process? Is it the handshake? What is it that is breaking this this flow? Or as you say, it could just be an energy problem. It could just be that they're having a harder time than you dealing with what is happening, and that could be the case. And there you can just show up as their friend. And so again, it's like an engagement performance question. You don't have to drop the performance piece. You have to do both at the same time. You can do it with humanity and compassion. You can do it as a peer who might have a better way of doing things or a better process, or you can do it as a collaborator where actually the problem is in how we are working together and let's fix it. But I do think regardless, you should address it out loud. You should address it directly with them. You don't need to escalate unless this becomes a repetitive problem that is really has a potential to hurt the business. And at the same time, please avoid trying to be the hero. You cannot do your job, your team's job, their job. It doesn't work like that, but you are peers and you need to be able to work well together. And if you don't see them finding their way, maybe, Rhea has a great term. She calls it a peer tour, which is not a
Yeah.
mentor, but a peer tour. Maybe that's what they need today. So
Yeah.
definitely step in that way.
That's a great term. Maybe to wrap this polarity in this chapter up, I want to offer a set of resources. Our team could drop them in the chat. We've done a lot of work on rituals. The HBR article that's published based on the study done with Dr. Connie Hadley. We have a ritual bank. And actually, what I want to mention about the ritual bank is rituals are not just there to drive the engagement piece. They are also there to help you with performance. So you can take a look and browse. We have a lot of different ones and ideas that are also like community submitted. They're not all ours. That really will help you consider how you, like you said, Marilyn, build that system to drive and enable performance and also keep engagement high. Take a look and see if any are, relevant to your team. We hope that, it offers a good resource on a way to introduce the mechanism, the format to allow you to, both connect and meaningfully engage with your team, and at the same time build a cadence that's going to help you keep performance going. So yeah, wonderful. I'm going to move us on to our next polarity, which it's called, control empowerment. And a first question we received around it, I'll read that and then maybe share more about the polarity. It says, "Dear Cosmic Centaurs, I manage a team of relatively junior profiles in a fast-paced environment in Dubai. Right now, everything feels urgent and I keep defaulting to fixing things because it's just faster. I know this isn't sustainable. I want to step back and empower my team and also make sure things are delivered. How do I do that?" And, I think it links a little bit to what we were talking about earlier, but maybe I'll take a step back and talk about this idea of navigating control and empowerment. Actually, in pressure, we tend to default to a sense of control, like this question reads, like things need to be done fast, things are uncertain, I just need to get it done. We fix more, we step in more, we try and hold the reins a little tighter. I mean, it's natural, right? It's not because necessarily, though, we want to control things. It might just be because we believe that right now speed is the name of the game. And I, as the manager, can do this way faster with, reduced numbers of iterations. But over time, that then will create another tension, right? You could be seen as the micromanager. You could be seen as a leader who doesn't enable your teams, the leader who doesn't delegate. Delegation is actually really challenging. A lot of leaders struggle with it because, and research from the University of Arizona shows that it's really tough to relinquish control and articulate a task. We have a bias called self-enhancement where we believe our work is superior because we actually fear that we're losing our importance in the organization. Like that's where it really comes down from. And in moments of uncertainty, like that fear is probably amplified across the board. And yet we as managers don't want that, right? Taking us to the other side of the polarity, empowerment, allowing our teams to have those learning experiences, allowing ourselves to let go of something and to allow them to kind of go through a learning journey and discover and really feel like they can own something, especially at a time when maybe a win is really what they need to carry them through an uncertain context. Going back to the question, how I step back and empower my team while still making sure things are delivered. What I would say is, I think it's about really structuring the work and the way of the working, not so that you are involved in every step, but that you are a resource to your team who is, or that individual who's taking it on. Like Marilyn said earlier, it starts with a really good brief, right? You want to step back and empower a team? We have a visitor. You take a minute to just explain why the task is here. Make sure you're aligned on the definition of success. Make sure you're aligned on the outcome. Offer a space for asking questions, and then having check-ins to be a support along the way. If you feel like you need to do this quickly, then you set those daily check-ins. I mean, we have a project we worked on where we were like, every day we're going to see progress on this, and that's where we have it. And it's just it's a chance for your team member or the employee who's taking on the task to come and ask you something, to say, today I've made this much progress. I want to ask you, can you unlock the next step? I think that's a really important element of it is, can you take on what's really necessary? So the high risk decisions, the high visibility outputs, like, you can control the things that are really, really critical, but you can also empower and delegate the work where you feel like there's opportunity for someone to learn from this, and then you can structure it in a meaningful way without doing it. I'm gonna stop and see, Marilyn, if you wanted to add anything to that, because we have another question in this category that we'll get to in just a second.
Yeah, no, thank you. Sorry, I had a little visitor here to our
No,
webinar, so I needed to promptly take her off stage.
no worries.
I'm sorry about that. No, I mean, I really think like this is again always the risk with control and empowerment, which is that if you save people all the time, then you disable their ability to grow.
Yes.
And if you do that, you'll be seen as like the hero for a while, because firefighters are rewarded in a lot of organizations. And so you'll be seen as like, oh, we can't live without Marilyn. What would we do if she wasn't here? She finishes everything. She saves everything. She is so amazing. But you'll never be able to grow. And the truth is, firefighting can only be useful for, some length. But your job is not to do the work. Your job is to manage the performance of your team. Always, always. And of course, as you progress, you still do some of the work, right? Like as we go through layers of hierarchy, the CEO shouldn't be doing any of the work, maybe. But of course, at different levels, we progressively reduce this. So of course, we still have work to do. But your value is, can I build a system that is good enough that if I'm being considered for a promotion or a new role, not that people don't stop themselves from making that decision because they think that if I leave this team, it will collapse.
Yes.
So you really want to think about it that way. You want to build your succession. You want to build your system. You want to put things in place so that people can survive without you for a week. And if you don't empower people, even when it's risky, then it won't work. And one thing that we do as a team, again, just kind of bringing in the practicality, we've even documented this for our team, is that in a year, or in a cycle, in a quarter, depending on what makes sense for you, we will put people on projects that are explicitly not in their comfort zone. And we will tell them this. And we will tell them, we've got you because with this client, we can cover your back, or because this is internal, or because we have a bit more time, I'm starting you early on this. And so we are empowering people at a time where the risk is a bit lower, but we have to do that consciously, or else we'll never have people who are able to deliver the work, and we'll stay in this cycle forever. And so we have like a very clear way of deciding who gets allocated to what at a time where the risk is manageable, so people can learn, they can be empowered within a safe space. Even for them, like failure is not going to end their job. And that's how progressively we relinquish control, because we have allowed people to grow and now they are capable of taking something on. So I think that's how you want to think about this polarity.
I want to build off of that for the next question, because we got one and I want to offer a little bit of tough advice. So we got a question that says, Dear Cosmic Centaurs, I feel like I'm constantly following up, re-explaining, and also dealing with last-minute changes from other teams that creates rework. I feel like I need to keep accountable, but I also need to keep things moving. What's your advice? And I want to zoom in on, I think we answered the second part of the question, but I want to zoom in on this idea of, I feel like I'm constantly following up, re-explaining, and dealing with last-minute changes. I think a lot of us, managers, we are promoted because we're really good at a job, right? Maybe some of us have more of a knack for leadership. Maybe some of us have a passion for growing others. Some of us are like, I'm just trying to grow, right? And like, I don't necessarily always remember that part of my role is the development of my team. And that's where empowerment is super important. You don't just want to like, empowerment isn't emboldening your team. It's empowering them to learn and to grow. And that is part of our role as middle managers. And it's one that we tend to forget because we hear things like, oh, I have to yet again redo this, or I'm re-explaining, or they just ask me the same questions. And I want to offer like a piece of advice, which is like, maybe take a step back, and just recenter yourself. Part of your role is to develop the team. They will not know how to do something if somebody doesn't teach it to them. The way that we teach as leaders is by role modeling. Of course, we can make things explicit, but it's to say that when you come to brief a task, are you structuring a brief clearly? Are you explaining why you made changes to a piece of work so that people know how not to do that again? Are you seeing your role as somebody who's building, and enabling the team that you work with? Or are you just trying to see yourself as the approver with the red pen? Because I think it's a mindset shift, and one that we can especially forget in uncertain contexts, because time is, like the pressure's on and it feels like you might be a bit dysregulated, and that's 100% okay. But I want to just offer a reminder to those tuning in to say that, it is really part of our remit to enable the talent that we work with. And it's hard and it's not easy. And it requires us to be explicit in our communication and patient, and to just remind ourselves that, there was a manager who once did this with us, and now it's our
Yeah.
role to do it, right?
Yeah.
So
And I also like again offer there's the kind of the element of enabling the people around us. There's also the element of enabling the system. And whenever we hear something, rework, redo, rebrief, re-explain, please take this as a symptom of a broken system. So part of your broken system can be the people and you need to enable them. Part of it sounds like a process problem to me. Because if you're constantly having to, here is the sentence, right? Let me, last minute changes from other teams that create rework. Why are there last minute changes from other teams? Is it that you haven't clarified your SLAs? You don't have a clear process. You don't have a cutoff date at which feedback can no longer be given. You're not clear on the number of iterations that you're willing to make. So I want to say that whenever your problem has the word re in it, I want you to look at your system as a whole. It can be the process, it can be the brief, it can be the quality assurance, it can be the way we collaborate, the boundaries we've set, and it can be our internal capabilities. So just a little like flag over here.
That's a really great indicator. It's like the light turning on in the car to tell you that there's something wrong. I think the word re is a good one to keep an eye out for. And I want to go there. I want to talk about the system. As middle managers, we're close to the work. We talk about our teams. We think a lot of our role as managing the people who report into us, and maybe sometimes cross-functional collaborators if you're leading on a project. Also, as middle managers, we are in the middle. Therefore, there is a layer of leadership that we manage up. And we had a question that says, "Dear Cosmic, I work in a large hierarchical organization in Qatar. I see the risks or opportunities early, but decisions sit at the top, and delays feel even more critical. How do I influence upwards without overstepping or being seen as difficult? So how do I think of myself as a middle manager? How do I control the layer above me or not? And kind of act as a lot of times when you manage up, you are managing up. You need to manage your manager in a way, be cognizant of their time. Yet at the same time, like, you're not their boss theoretically. So how do we navigate this polarity when we're managing up is the question. And I think you have a great perspective on this.
I do. I mean, I had this conversation with someone we work with just last week. And they were kind of really frustrated. They're like, I've pitched this a million times. They don't know what they're doing. You know how sometimes, like when we're trying to effect change and we've met with a lot of boundaries and blockers, we end up really resenting the people around us. And I think, the conversation that I was having with this person was like, maybe the reason they're not moving, giving you budget, is not a judgment of you, your value, your ideas. It's a judgment of how you're presenting it to them. And maybe what you haven't yet figured out how to do is to present it to them in the way that they are thinking about this problem right now. Like senior executives don't care about how good your ideas are. They care about de-risking their business, right? And so that means that you have to be able to speak their language. If they're a P&L oriented person, you have to demonstrate that whatever it is that you think should be done differently has a good chance of delivering the impact. If you're in an impact-oriented organization, you got to be able to demonstrate how this is going to help to further the goals of the organization. So I think you want to, it's no longer about, here's what I think we could do, or I have a great idea, or why don't we consider? It's more like, all right, this is how consultants do it. We're like, here are the 3 options for how we do this. This is my assessment of the potential outcome. Do you have a different assessment? Let's talk about it. Okay, let's adjust these numbers. If we adjust these numbers at the end, hear how the 3 options weigh against each other. Even if my option is one of them and there are 2 others that came from someone else or whatever, or they're the ones being considered, I just think you want to elevate how you talk to people. You want to show them how you're de-risking. So if you have a risk-averse leader, or someone who prefers to like stay in the comfort zone, what are you going to do to show them, oh, like, I know that you're afraid that, name it for them. I know that you're afraid that this might happen if we follow this. There's going to be a PR problem. There's a marketing risk. There's a whatever. How about we de-risk it in the following 3 ways? I'm going to go pitch this idea to 3 entities and take their feedback and come back and give it to you, because they will tell us whether they think there will be a marketing or a PR crisis or not, So I just want you to elevate to talking about risk, to talking about P&L, to talking about real outcomes, not about ideas or projects or tasks, because that's not where the mind of a leader is.
Beautiful. It's the concept that we talk a lot about in our strategic leader program, which is, can you be audience centric? Can you exercise not just empathy and feeling for that person, but can you do something about it? So compassion, can you be different? We ask a lot of the leaders and learners in the session to do a user persona. And we typically pick audiences like it's their customer or their beneficiary, but we always put in a manager, because we always want to make sure that they know how to communicate to the leaders in their organizations and to know what their needs are, what are their pain points, what type of person are they, how much time do they have? It's so important, because we often just say what we want to say. And then, like you're saying, Marilyn, that is the idea or the output. I did this, or I want to do this. But actually, when we work with executives, we need to be talking about outcomes. So not just what did we do, but what will change because of what we did. And that is exactly the type of language shift that we really encourage leaders at every level to adopt, to really go from saying, here's what, reporting on what I did, or suggesting what I want to do, and really saying, here's what's going to change for us. And that is where, like you're saying, impact on the business, really talking about, like, if it's a P&L owner, what that means for them. If they're risk averse, de-risking it for them, and making them feel seen and heard, and that what their needs are. And that's the easiest way to kind of persuade, especially in uncertain contexts when everything, the pressure in the system is there. So yeah, really great. Marilyn, I'm going to invite you to share, the next chapter on present future. Maybe you want to pick up one of those questions and tell us a little bit about that third polarity that we're going to be diving into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, like, one of the hardest things, and I've heard this in numerous conversations, and in fact, we have 2 workshops that will be focused on this, which are called Grounded and Limitless, and is really about how to manage the present and the future, because we are very much pulled into what we can control, the day-to-day, potentially like daily crises. We're also asked, if you're a senior leader, we're asked to imagine and build towards the future. The problem is, if you're in that middle layer, you're often not in the room where these conversations are taking place. You actually have no visibility whatsoever, because many companies are not able to communicate their future plans. If they have them, they're not able to provide clarity, or they just haven't provided clarity. And so middle managers are often stuck in a place where they're managing today. They're, if they're doing well, they're managing the present, but they're being asked a lot of questions by their team about the future. And it's a little bit hard for them to be able to provide the clarity, right? So the questions that we received are, dear Cosmic Centaurs, I'm leading a small team in a tech company in Saudi. Sometimes my team asks me about the future of the business and I don't have the answer. I feel unsure myself. How do I manage these questions? And how do I communicate, especially, in the absence of a clear key messaging from the top? Mm-hmm. And again, go back and watch our session with Claire last week. We also will have an upcoming session on key messaging from leaders and middle managers to help you kind of frame this. So if anyone's interested, they can join us. And I think, again, it's a really tough position to be in. That's why we love middle managers, because they always have to bear the brunt of the hard work. So we're always trying to be their best friend. And I'll say, look, if you are managing the present, right? So like, we're not here to talk about that. Let's assume that you're doing this well. I think there's a few things that you can do in terms of helping to communicate about the future. The first thing is, you need to distinguish the fact that your people aren't necessarily expecting you to have all the answers. They just want you to show. So first of all, even if all you do is say, I don't know, but I have noted these 3 questions, I will bring them up in the next whatever is the cadence that you can bring them up in the next ELT. or in the next meeting with my own manager. Like, at least you can just show that you've heard, you've acknowledged, you have the answers for some things, but not for others. Now, when it comes to the future of the business, like that's a really, really big question, right?
Mm. Mm.
Um, I think that you can just help to go back to fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
And if your industry is at risk because of whatever, take our industry, professional services, like it's a really, really hard time. And I think anybody can say that. We can
Yeah.
say like it's a hard time, but here's what we also know. So I think taking it back to, and again, if that's in your capacity, but taking it back to fundamentals. Okay,
Mm.
you know what? If our leaders don't have an explicit answer for us, let's look at what data can tell us. What are the
Mm.
predictions around how our sector is evolving? What can we look and see about our sector in the last 10, 20 years? This is where you start to build your strategic muscle that tells us where we might be. What do we know for sure is going to help to protect the company?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, what are we doing to protect our revenue, or what are we doing to help minimize our costs? So what you can at least provide is this perspective that while we may not have answers, and by the way, even our CEO doesn't have an answer, to be clear. It's not like
Yeah.
they have some magic ball that they can look into. We
Yeah.
can together think about how has this happened before? Like, this is not the first crisis that
No.
humanity experiences. There's a lot of literature around all of these things. Be curious. Go out and find your own answers. Say, like, let's sit down and reflect on this together. How can we make sure that we put the business in the best position it can be in the future? What is
Yeah.
within our span of control that we can do right here? So if you're a sales team, what is going to be our business development plan? If you're a customer service team, how are we making sure that we satisfy our customers so that they don't leave us and they don't ask for a discount because we're doing so well that they don't want to do that. Every little thing that you can do to protect the future, help people focus on that. I think so. Control, the circle of control, what can you do to protect the future of the business? The circle of influence, what can you take to a leader, a manager, or whatever, and say, like, listen, I've received these questions, how can we help answer them for people? Actually, I'd love to know, what would you like me to say when I'm asked this question? So that's your circle of influence.
Yeah.
And what is outside of that, relinquish, and help everybody else relinquish it too. But if you show up consistently, if you come every week and say, here's what I know, here's what I don't, here's what we can think about together, here's what we can't, here's what we can influence, here's what we can't, people will feel inner peace and inner clarity, and that's the best that you can provide them. And remember, you're not the CEO, so don't try to don't try to shoulder that burden yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like you said, actually, even the CEO may not have that clarity. We did get a question that says, is it possible for me as a manager to create stability for my team without saying something? And I think what your answer said is, yeah, absolutely. Actually, like you can. And even when you say, I don't have all the answers about the future, but let's focus on today. What is within our control? Like you said, what is within our influence? It's a really refreshing take, because I know, and we've seen a lot with some of the middle managers, sometimes people feel like, oh, it's not my place, or maybe I shouldn't, and it's that mindset shift, right? To say that, actually, what if you looked at your team as like, I'll do what I can to provide for this group of individuals or this department, and not try and necessarily offer them information that doesn't exist, but just show up in the ways that I can. And so I want to thank you for that. That was really a good one. I know that present future is one of those polarities that um it's also like the concept of time. And so, like, you feel like, well, it comes back to, can I focus on what I have on my plate today? Because everyone's like, oh, long-term plans, who knows if we'll have this event, who knows if we'll have this project coming up, who knows, right? But just, focusing on what we have in front of us today is a gift, and it's a beautiful way to help us remember that we can create value and feel fulfillment at work, and keep it moving, right? That's ultimately what we want to do.
Yeah, and really, I mean, don't shy away from raising things to as high as you can in the hierarchy. Again, it depends on the size of your company. If it's a smaller
Yeah.
one, straight to the
Yeah.
CEO. If it's a
Yeah.
bigger one, market manager or whatever it is, because they might not know that this is needed. I think sometimes we think, oh no, our leaders know, and they're just being, I'm not going to use any bad words this morning, incompetent, let's say. They don't know what you need. Please stop
Yeah.
thinking that they are some kind of all-knowing, super person.
Yep.
Raise it to them. Be like, by the way, I'm not trying to add this on your plate, and I'm happy to help you with it. But here are questions that the team have been raising. And I think it's been too long since our last town hall, and maybe it's time to do one. And I
Yeah.
promise you that if you say it in the right way, not in a like, complaining kind of way, but rather in a supportive, let me help you, let's figure this out, but this is what we need from you, boss. They will be grateful. Leaders need to be told sometimes what the front line is missing. And you can be that voice. I think a lot of us say, oh, it's not my place. The second you say it's not my place, you're not really fulfilling your potential. It's not your role, it's your potential. And that's how you grow. If a CEO saw you as a trusted advisor during this crisis, I bet you the next opportunity they have, you're going to get it. So see this as a way of growing your career, and have some courage.
Beautiful. Thank you. Believe it or not, we've covered a lot of ground in the last 50 minutes. I need to wrap us up, and I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions, the lightning round. Maybe before I do that, I just want to kind of close with a moment to say that, again, we named a lot of the polarities that we see a lot of middle managers deal with, because actually leading in the middle requires you to have that leadership range, to be able to do two things that seem like they come into opposition, and to be able to navigate when you do each. So not either or, but both and. And what we did today was try and give you the language for some of the challenges that middle managers everywhere are seeing, right? And that hopefully allows you to develop that awareness that you are in a polarity. Maybe now you can name it. You're like, oh, I can really see, I don't know whether to do performance or engagement. And hopefully we've inspired you to think about how to embrace this and approach. So control and empowerment, performance and engagement. There's a lot of other tools and resources. We have a few articles and also the polarity map that our team will drop in the chat. We also have great articles for middle managers. We understand the challenges of what it means to lead in the middle, and we'll drop that. But I wanted to thank you, Marilyn, for all of your insights. And I know that there's a really powerful quote that you love around polarities, and I was hoping you could share that with everybody and why it really resonates with you.
Yeah, I mean, again, as you introduced in the beginning, polarities are not things that are in opposition to each other. They're actually self-reinforcing. Everything we talked about, engagement makes performance higher, and a team that wins is more engaged. And the present and the future, it's nice to dream about the future, but you have to build it. And what are you building towards? The future. So I think all of these are moments that invite us to think about these problems differently. And in the end, what are we here to do? We're here to remove the hurdles that are between us and our goal. And so the quote that I really love about polarity is by Niels Bohr. And he says, how wonderful that we have met with a paradox. Now we have some hope of making progress. And what I, the way that I interpret this quote for myself is that actually, and I do this a lot with the leaders we work with, they're like, I can't believe this is the problem. I'm like, how wonderful that we now have a name for it, because now the solution is actually within reach, So whenever you are able to name what you are experiencing, what is getting in your way, the solution is always within reach if you're willing to be disciplined about bringing it to life. So how wonderful if you meet with some of these things and you're able to, write a question like the ones that we've received, you're already 80% there in terms of solving it.
Yeah, thank you. Before I let you go, Marilyn, I do want to extract some wisdom from you, because I've heard you ask every, and I myself have asked a lot of the webinar speakers these questions from our lightning round. So now I'm going to turn the mic on you. For the first question, I want to know, what keeps you grounded?
Can I say two very different things?
Let's hear it.
What keeps me grounded is balancing all of the roles in my life, even through this time. So I go extremely ham on work during the week, and I do my time sheets. I spend 12 to 14 hours a day making sure we're headed in the right direction and rowing fast. And at the same time, it's honoring my role as a mother, as a community member, as a neighbor, whatever it may be on the weekend. And so I feel grounded when I've been able to spend focused time being a good mom, being a good friend, I do a lot of hosting these days, maybe more than I have in the last 3 to 4 months, because I want people to come together, to enjoy each other's company, to remember that they are not alone. And those things really ground me. I come on Monday morning and I'm ready if I've done that. And I think the other thing that really grounds me is remembering that the purpose of what we do to build better organizations where people are happier, that deliver better results, is truly my life's work. And I would wake up every day, come hell or high waters, to deliver that mission. And that allows me to, stay energized and keep moving.
Powerful. Thank you. And what helps you be limitless?
Honestly, just curiosity and great people.
Yeah.
The willingness to ask a question, whether it's in the realm of what we do or not, and like pull the thread on it and explore and learn and be with other people who are like that too. I think if you surround yourself with the right individuals who themselves have that attitude of like, okay, the world is kind of a hard place right now, but let's not make it harder. Let's dream, let's ask, let's learn. All of the speakers that we've had, all of you guys just being like, fine, we're going to keep moving here.
Yes.
Really brings the right energy, brings the right intuitions, rather than people who are trying to decide what political move who is going to pull this week. I spend no time with those individuals. And when people come to dinner at my house, I forbid them from having those conversations. Because it's like, it's helping no one. Let's stay, let's stay oriented towards what is possible rather than trying to be a political analyst,
Yeah, nice. We are doing research on leadership from the Arab world. The world has a lot to learn from our leadership qualities. And I want to know from you, what is the one leadership quality from the Arab world that the rest of the world really needs to learn from?
I mean, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. People, relationships, compassion, community, all of the things that sit on the relational side. I've seen so many beautiful examples, from the UAE funding, hotels for stranded passengers, people opening their homes, communities coming together, professional communities like, whether it's our community this week at the Professional Services Roundtable. I've seen beautiful examples in the hospitality industry, just people opening up to others and choosing to have an open heart and choosing to have an open mind. I think that is incredibly unique. We're not shrinking, we're expanding, and we're doing it because we have people behind us, next to us, in front of us, and we're really doubling down on that. I had people offer to help me. I've helped to help others. I just think that's really beautiful, and that is incredibly unique to this part of the world.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. It's kind of like this conference, isn't it?
Absolutely, exactly.
Wonderful. Well, last question, and based on today's conversation, which had no shortage of insights, tools, and again, thank you to everybody who submitted a question. I just want you to, summarize for us, Marilyn. What are the top 3 things that you would advise leaders to do right now?
Yes, and again, I'm going to give this answer in the context of the middle managers that we spoke of today, and what we've seen. Look, I think the first thing to do is really to name what is it that you're faced with. Put a name on it. As we did today for you, we named it in these polarities. I think when you're able to find words for a situation, like I said earlier, you can solve it. Yeah. I think the second thing is allow yourself the space, the time, the people to give you energy, because if you are not regulated, if you are not in a good place, you cannot lead your team, you cannot lead your peers, you cannot manage up. So find the problem, name it, draw a line towards the solution, protect yourself. So find your own energy, your own grounding, make sure that you are in a good place to do it, and don't limit yourself with what you are allowed to do, what is in my scope and what isn't. This is a time for stepping up and stepping forward. And it's okay to be demanding while being compassionate. It's okay to manage the present while still dreaming about the future. It's okay to be a middle manager and reach out to the CEO. I think liberate yourself from the rules that you think apply. Do what is right for the people and the business, ignore everything else.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. I just want to add to that last question because I think that there's a few things that like really stood out to me from this conversation. The first one is about this concept of grace. Give yourself grace, give your team grace, like recognize kind of what's happening around us and how we as managers can offer some slack where it's needed and also exercise when it's not, and remember that we are here to create value and work towards something, and work can be a gift. And the second thing that really you kind of initiated was this idea of like be audience centric, like be empathic, think of the person that's in front of you, ask yourself what you would need if you were an individual contributor or if you were the C-suite leader. Like say, hey, how do you want to approach today's meeting? And then your CEO or your leader might think like, oh my God, you're right, I don't know, I haven't thought about it. And maybe the last one is kind of like you said, like just to name it and craft a solution towards it. It is a challenging, uncertain time, and middle managers carry a load. So you just calling it out and saying that will help you find that solution. So yeah, thank you, Marilyn, and thank you to everybody who submitted a question, who tuned into this conversation. We will be sharing a recording of this on our LinkedIn, on our YouTube, on our website, podcast format, video format, article format. I saw somebody tag someone in the comments. Please do share it with anybody. And if you will, if you have 4 minutes to spare, we would really be grateful if you could contribute to our primary research on leadership in the Arab world. There's a link in the chat, and your perspective will really help us shape a meaningful white paper. We have another session later today at 4 p.m. with Odeh, who will be sharing more about how you can grow a business and develop a business in a prolonged crisis. So we hope to see you back today at 4 p.m. UAE time. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. I wish you a wonderful day ahead, and see you soon.